His hand sliced through the air, cracking against my daughter's cheek with a sound that made the entire room go silent. I saw her head whip sideways, the shock on her face shattering something in me that could never be rebuilt. My brother. My own flesh and blood. He stood there grinning like it was a joke. Like humiliating my child in front of 30 wedding guests was the most hilarious party trick he could think of. Like mother, like daughter, both are useless. He laughed, loud and cruel, soaking up the uncomfortable chuckles of the onlookers who didn't know where to look. And then my mother of all people, added her venom with a cold smirk. Well, at least she learned some respect. My name is Cara Sullivan, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever stood in a room full of family and felt like a stranger in your own skin? I could hear the blood rushing through my ears, a pounding roar that drowned out every hushed whisper around me. My daughter, poor Emily, only 13, stood frozen with tears welling in her eyes, one trembling hand pressed to her cheek. The guests didn't move. They just watched. No one stepped forward. No one asked if she was okay. Because that's what this family had always been. Loyalty to appearances. Loyalty to the monster in a suit who called himself my brother. Loyalty to silence. But today, they had forgotten one small thing. The microphone was on. The microphone, left live on the speaker system from the best man's toast, caught every word in crystal clarity. The slap, the insult, my mother's disgusting approval. I saw a few heads turning, saw phones lifted, saw wide-eyed faces registering exactly what they'd heard. Their perfect family image shattered in an instant, live for everyone to witness. My brother followed my eyes, sudden panic flickering across his grin as he realized the feed was being broadcast over the entire hall. Too late. I stepped forward, hands steady even though my heart felt like it was tearing apart. Emily was still shaking, tears spilling down her small chin. I touched her shoulder, gently, and she clung to me like she might fall if I let go. It's okay, I whispered. I'm here. My brother took a step toward me, trying to recover, but the guests had already turned against him. The air shifted. Whispers grew sharper, braver. You're overreacting. He tried to joke, but his voice cracked. You know how kids are, disrespectful. I met his eyes, the same eyes I had trusted as a child, and saw nothing but rot in them. Touch her again, I said quietly, and you will answer to me. He laughed again, but it was hollow now. What? You gonna call the cops on your own brother? My jaw tightened. If you ever put your hands on my daughter again, I said, voice steady as stone, I won't call the cops. I'll end you myself. The hush in the hall turned electric. Someone in the back clapped. Just one person, but then a second joined in, then more, until the room was filled with the sound of slow, righteous applause. My brother's face turned red, twisting in rage. My mother hissed at me under her breath. You're making a scene. I turned to Emily, brushing hair from her face, ignoring the monster and the coward behind me. Emily, I told her, you are not useless. You are everything. She sobbed, burying her face in my chest, and in that moment I made a vow. They wanted to see shame. They wanted to teach her a lesson. Fine. They would learn my lesson instead. And by the time I was finished, my brother would wish he had never raised his hand against my child, and my mother would regret ever smirking at my pain. I looked out across the hall, breathing in the awkward silence. Let them watch. Because I was going to bane every lie to the ground. People think family is unbreakable. That blood is thicker than betrayal. That somehow, if you share a last name, you should swallow every poison they pour into you. I used to believe that, too. But the echo of my daughter's cry, the sting on her cheek, burned through every stupid story I ever told myself about loyalty. After the applause died down, the guests shifted around nervously, pretending to care, pretending to whisper support. But nobody came forward to comfort Emily except me. Nobody dared to stand between my brother and the quiet threat in my eyes. The microphone was still on. I left it that way. I wanted every filthy piece of this family to hear my voice loud and clear. From today, I said into the mic, if you ever lay a hand on me or my child again, I will make sure the whole world sees who you really are. My brother tried to bark out a laugh. You think you're strong enough to take me down? Grow up, Cara. I turned to Emily, ignoring him. Go with Aunt Laura, I whispered. Wait outside. She nodded, still trembling, and slipped through the side door where my cousin Laura waited with open arms. I was grateful Laura had come. She wasn't perfect, but she'd never been cruel. When Emily was out of sight, I stepped closer to my brother. The room shrank around us, all eyes on the showdown. I didn't flinch. You want to hit someone your own size? I asked. Come on, then. He glared, that ugly pride flashing across his face. For a moment, I thought he'd swing again, here in front of everyone. But the shame in the crowd's faces, phones still raised, cameras recording, froze him. He dropped his hands, suddenly aware. You always had a big mouth, he spat. And you always had small hands. I shot back. A couple of people gasped. Someone tried to stifle a laugh. The tension cracked for just a second. But I wasn't laughing, because I had a plan. They'd handed me their worst selves on a silver platter, and the MIC had caught it all. The wedding photographer had recorded it. People had live-streamed it. In one stupid, hateful moment, my brother had exposed the rotten heart of our family. Now I would turn it into a weapon. My mother stalked over, voice low and scolding, trying to snatch my arm. You humiliated us, she hissed, in front of everyone. I shook her off. No, I said, you humiliated yourselves. Her mouth opened to argue, but she had nothing left. The truth had done what my screaming never could. It made them look in the mirror. My brother slunk toward the exit, tail between his legs, still pretending he'd been wronged. Mom scurried after him, trying to soothe his bruised ego. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. I walked to the DJ table and pulled the microphone from its stand. The guests were still frozen, unsure what to do, where to look. Enjoy the rest of the party, I told them, voice steady. This family isn't hiding behind lies anymore. No one moved. Then someone started to clap again, hesitant at first, but stronger this time. A woman I barely knew put her hand on my shoulder and whispered, Good for you. I nodded, swallowing the knot in my throat. Thanks, I managed. Outside, I found Emily leaning against Laura's car, her face pale, eyes still glassy. When she saw me, she ran into my arms and sobbed again. I'm sorry, Mom, she choked. You didn't do anything wrong, I told her. Never think that. She hugged me so tight it hurt, and I didn't dare let go. In that moment, I made a silent vow. They had called me useless. They had called her worthless. I would make sure they learned exactly how strong we were. Together. This wasn't over. Not by a mile. Emily wouldn't let go of my waist, clinging to me as if she might slip through the cracks if I stepped away. I smoothed her hair, breathing in the familiar shampoo, fighting back the rage still coiled tight in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn around and rip through every guest who'd sat frozen while my daughter was humiliated. But the only thing that mattered was the girl in my arms. When she finally looked up at me, her cheeks still red and raw, there was so much fear in her eyes it broke something inside me. Mom, did I do something wrong? I felt a tear slip down my cheek before I could stop it. No, sweetheart, I told her. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Laura stood quietly a few steps away, arms folded, a protective wall. I nodded to her. Take Emily to your place tonight, I said, my voice steady. I have to handle something. Laura raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Positive, I answered. Emily clutched my hand. You'll be okay. I'll be better than okay, I promised. I'm going to fix this. I watched them drive off, Emily waving through the back window, her face pressed against the glass. When they were gone, the weight of everything settled on me like a mountain. I wanted to collapse, but I didn't. Instead, I turned back toward the wedding hall. My brother thought he could humiliate us. He thought he could break me, like he had 100 times before. But he'd forgotten one thing. This wasn't his private kingdom anymore. The MIC had caught every word, every vile laugh, and I knew exactly how to use that. I marched back into the hall, where a few stragglers were still talking in awkward half-whispers. They fell silent when they saw me, like they weren't sure if I was a villain or a hero. Maybe I was both. I went straight to the photographer's station. The young guy behind the camera looked nervous, eyes darting between me and the dance floor. I'm sorry about what happened, he stammered. Did you record the whole thing? I asked. He swallowed. Yes. Send me the footage, I said, pulling a business card from my purse. Tonight. He nodded quickly, typing in the number. Of course. I gave him a cold smile. Thank you. As I left, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. I had evidence. The proof of how they treated me, how they treated Emily. There would be no more sweeping it under the rug, no more pretending. Outside, the air was crisp, biting, honest. For the first time in years, I felt honest, too. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my hands on the wheel. They were shaking. I took a deep breath, forcing the tremor to still. There was a plan forming, a dark, unstoppable plan. They wanted to teach my daughter shame. I would teach them what shame really felt like. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Melissa Campbell, local news producer. We'd gone to college together. I hadn't spoken to her in ages, but she'd told me once to call if I ever had a story worth telling. Melissa, I said when she picked up. It's Kara. I have a story, and you're going to want to hear it. Her voice lit up with curiosity. What happened? I looked out over the quiet parking lot, a smile breaking across my face for the first time that day. My family, I said, and how I am about to make them famous. Her laughter on the other end was sharp, excited. Send me everything. I would send her every single second, because I was done hiding. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, with all that rage, all that electricity pulsing through my veins? I replayed the slap over and over, the way my brother's hand flew through the air, the sick crack of my daughter's face, the way her shoulders shrank in defeat. I would burn it into memory, so I never, ever forgave. Melissa texted me around midnight. Footage looks crystal clear. The sound is perfect. I'm talking to my editor in the morning. I read her message 3 times. My fingers trembled, but not from fear. From power. Emily deserved better. If I had to destroy every lie my family built to give her that, I'd do it without blinking. I got up, pacing the small apartment. Each creaking floorboard under my feet felt like a drumbeat, pushing me forward. At dawn, I put on jeans and a simple blue top, hair pulled back tight, like armor. No mascara, no blush. I wanted the exhaustion on my face to show. I wanted the world to see what survival looked like. Before I left, I stopped by Laura's to see Emily. She was asleep on the couch, hair tangled around her cheeks, a single tear stain still fresh under her eye. My heart nearly broke open. I kissed her forehead gently, breathing in her warm, safe smell. I love you, I whispered. No one will ever hurt you again. She didn't stir, but I hope some part of her heard me. Then I was gone. The news station was small, squeezed between a pawn shop and a payday loan place. It felt appropriate. Melissa greeted me in ripped jeans, no makeup, half a coffee in hand. Kara, you look like hell, she said, not unkindly. Feels accurate, I answered. She motioned me inside. I ran the footage by legal. We can run it. Do you want to do an interview? My throat tightened. Part of me wanted to say no, to crawl back under a blanket and dissipate. But the rest of me, the part they'd never managed to break, lifted its head. Yes, I said. Let's tell the whole story. Melissa nodded. All business. We'll film it today. They brought me to a small, dusty studio with harsh lights, a mic clipped to my collar, a bottle of water shoved into my shaking hand. I tried to steady my breathing. Then the red light blinked on. "Tell us what happened," Melissa prompted, her voice gentle behind the camera. I told it all. The slap, the words, the smike, the shame they tried to bury me under, the same shame they wanted to bury Emily under. My voice only shook once, when I said my daughter's name. When I was finished, there was a silence so heavy it felt holy. "That's your headline," Melissa whispered to a sound tech. "We run it tomorrow." I nodded, numb and blazing all at once. Walking out of that station, I felt a strange calm. The morning sun was blinding, catching in the streaks of gray on the sidewalk, lighting up everything that had once felt so dark. I had told the truth. For the first time in my life, I had not swallowed it down or made it small for their comfort. I had poured it out in front of the world. That night, I went back to Laura's. Emily was awake this time, scrolling her phone. When she saw me, she stood up fast, searching my face. "Mom, are you okay?" I took her hands in mine. "I'm more than okay," I told her. "We're free." She looked confused, but I hugged her close, and in that hug, I felt her strength rising again. Because tomorrow, they would all see. Tomorrow, the masks would burn, and they would never be able to hurt us again. The morning news rolled out like a grenade. Melissa's segment led the hour. Local woman confronts family abuse at wedding. Caught on live MIC. I watched it from Laura's couch, Emily by my side, both of us half holding our breath. There was my brother, replayed in crystal clear HD, his face twisted with anger, his hand flying toward Emily. There was my mother's smirk. There was my daughter's shame, laid bare for the entire town. The silence between me and Emily was loud enough to make my chest ache. "Mom," she whispered, "people are going to know." "They should know," I said softly. "It was never your shame to carry." My phone started buzzing within seconds. 100 messages. Coworkers, old classmates, neighbors, people who had known my brother as the golden boy, the one with the easy grin, the one who could do no wrong. Now they saw the monster. Some messages were kind. Some were filled with shock. Some, I knew, would eventually turn bitter. But I didn't care. I wasn't backing down. Emily kept staring at the TV, wide-eyed. Will they hate us? I hugged her closer. They might, I admitted, but we will never hate ourselves again. By afternoon, the video had gone viral. News blogs picked it up, then social media. Hashtags bloomed like weeds. My brother tried to post a half apology, whining about family misunderstandings, but it was too late. His face was burned into every feed, every phone. Melissa called me, voice alive with adrenaline. "You did it," she said. "The community's talking. People are asking real questions." "Good," I told her. "They should." I spent the next few hours answering messages. Some people called me brave. Some called me vindictive. But the most important message was from an unknown number. "My mom went through something like this. I wish she'd fought back. Thank you." I read that one over and over, letting it sink into my bones like a bomb. Maybe it wasn't just about revenge. Maybe it was about showing someone else they didn't have to take it. In the evening, Emily and I went out for air. We walked to a small diner on the edge of town, trying to pretend for just a moment that the world wasn't on fire. People stared. Some whispered. One woman gave me a thumbs up, mouthing "good for you" as we passed. Emily squeezed my hand. "Do you think they'll forgive you?" "I'm not asking them to," I answered. We ordered fries and milkshakes, sitting at a sticky booth under harsh fluorescent lights. It felt like something normal, and for once, normal was exactly what I wanted. My phone rang again. This time it was my mother. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then it rang again, and again. Finally, I put it on silent. "Aren't you going to answer?" Emily asked. "No," I said. She doesn't get to rewrite what happened. The TV above the counter switched to a local panel show. My name flashed across the ticker. Mother stands up against family abuse. I almost laughed. I hadn't asked to be a hero. But maybe heroes weren't born. Maybe they were cornered. Emily watched me, eyes wide and bright, and for the first time since the slap, she smiled. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." That single line was worth more than all the applause, all the views, all the hashtags in the world. I reached for her hand across the table. "I'm proud of you too," I said, voice cracking. Outside, the night felt warmer, somehow. Softer. I still had no idea what tomorrow would bring. The gossip, the hate, maybe even threats. But tonight, I had truth. And I had Emily. And that was enough. I let out a breath I'd been holding for years, letting the stale diner air fill my lungs. They could keep their perfect little lies. We had our truth. The next day, the news cycle refused to let go. My face, my voice, my story, it was everywhere. The headline had shifted now. Mother protects daughter. Sparks community conversation on family abuse. It felt surreal, seeing my own pain broadcast between weather updates and spot scars. I sat with Emily on Laura's worn old couch, the smell of laundry soap mixing with cheap carpet cleaner, the TV buzzing low in the background. Emily kept glancing at me, nervous, like she still didn't believe it was safe to breathe. "Are they going to come here?" she asked in a small voice. I shook my head. "No, they won't dare." I meant it. If my brother or my mother tried to find us, they would face a world that finally saw them for what they were. That was my shield now, the truth. Laura came in with a tray of sandwiches, pretending not to be worried. But I saw the questions behind her eyes. "So what's next?" she asked carefully. I took a long breath. "I'm going to start over," I told her. "I can't stay hidden forever. Emily needs school. I need work." Laura nodded slowly. "And my jaw tightened. They can combine in the world they built for themselves." That night, after Emily fell asleep, I found myself scrolling through news comments, reading strangers praising my courage. Some of them were brutal to my brother, calling him a monster. Some said I should have called the police years ago. Maybe they were right. But part of surviving in a house like mine was learning to make excuses, learning to bury the bruises so deep you almost forgot where they came from. Not anymore. I opened a new tab and started filling out a rental application. Some tiny apartment downtown, a place where no one knew my name or my family's drama. A place where Emily could be just another kid in the lunch line. Halfway through, I froze. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new text from a number I hadn't saved. "You think you've won? This isn't over." My heart slammed against my ribs. I read it twice, then calmly blocked the number. They still thought they could scare me. They had no idea who they'd made. I closed the laptop and stood by the window, watching the glow of streetlights on the cracked sidewalk. I could see tomorrow stretching out ahead of me, rough and uncertain, but honest. No more pretending. No more swallowing the screams. Emily stirred in her sleep, whimpering, and I went to her side, brushing her hair off her forehead. "I'm right here," I whispered. "I will always be right here." Outside, a car door slammed somewhere. I tensed for a second, but nothing happened. No footsteps, no threats, just the ordinary sounds of night. It felt peaceful. In the morning, I'd make a list. Call the landlord. Enroll Emily in a new school. Find a job, even if it was mopping floors or washing dishes. Whatever it took. Because I'd rather scrub tile on my knees than ever let those people write my story again. Emily deserved a mother who could stand tall. I was going to be that mother. I sat down on the edge of Laura's guest bed, stretching my aching shoulders, breathing in deep. The bruises would fade. The shame would fade. But my strength? That was here to stay. Morning came wrapped in cold sunlight and a strange sense of peace. I hadn't felt peace in years. Not the fake, false politeness that passes for peace at family dinners, but real quiet, when no one was watching, judging, or waiting to pounce. Emily helped me pack our few bags. Laura hovered in the doorway, still worried but letting us move at our own pace. The air was heavy with goodbye. "You're sure about this?" Laura asked for the 10th time. "Yeah," I nodded. "Steady. It's time." Emily pulled on her favorite backpack, the pink one with worn straps and doodles she'd drawn herself. For the first time in days, she looked almost like a normal teenager. We loaded the car, clothes, some photos, half-used notebooks. Not much, but ours. As we pulled out of Laura's driveway, Emily rolled down the window and waved. I watched Laura shrink in the mirror until she was just a blur. "Mom," Emily said quietly, "are we going to be okay?" "We already are," I told her, gripping the wheel, my knuckles white. We drove through streets I had known since I was a child, past the park where I'd first learned to ride a bike, past the house where my brother had once pushed me off the swings and laughed while I cried. We were done here. The apartment was small, but to me it looked like freedom. Beige walls, cheap carpet, a kitchen with cabinets that didn't quite shut right, but a place that was ours alone. No one would burst through the door screaming. No one would slap Emily. No one would tell me to shut my mouth. I stood in the middle of the empty living room, breathing in the dust and possibility. Emily twirled around, giggling like a kid again. "This is perfect," she announced. I laughed, a real laugh this time, one that bubbled up from a place I thought had died. "It is, baby," I agreed. "It really is." We spent the afternoon unpacking, folding the same clothes over and over to convince ourselves they belonged in this new place. Emily found a corner by the window to set up her sketchpad, sunlight spilling across her face. I signed her up for school the next morning. They barely blinked at our story, just nodded and handed over forms. That was what I wanted, to be no one special, no one tragic. At night, Emily curled up in her own bed, in her own room, no footsteps in the hallway to make her flinch. I lay awake for a long time, listening to the hum of the fridge, the traffic outside, the ordinary sounds of an ordinary life. My phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't even check. I turned it off, placed it face down on the table, and left it there. I wouldn't let them reach me. Not now. Not ever. Emily called softly from the other room. "Mom? You okay?" "Yeah," I called back, voice warm. "Go to sleep, honey. I'm here." And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I meant it. No more fear. No more shame. No more performing the role of a good, silent daughter. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for work. Maybe something simple. I didn't care. As long as I could pay rent, keep Emily fed, and stay far away from their poison, I'd be rich. We were free. And nothing, not their gossip, not their lies, not their guilt, could pull us back into that prison again. I closed my eyes, the beat of my heart steady and calm. We had lost so much, but what we'd found was worth more than anything they'd ever tried to take away. Morning light filled our new apartment like a blessing, seeping into every corner as if to chase away years of shadows. I stood by the window, watching Emily get ready for her first day at her new school. She packed her sketchpad, slipped on a worn hoodie, and tried to tame the flyaway strands of hair that refused to cooperate. For the first time, she looked excited instead of afraid. "Mom, you think they'll like me?" she asked, a hint of hope peeking through. "If they don't, that's their loss," I said with a small grin. She laughed, a real, sweet laugh, and hugged me so tight I had to blink away tears. After she left, I sat alone for a moment, letting the silence sink in. No screams, no harsh voices behind thin walls, just the hum of the fridge and the far-off echo of traffic outside. I opened my phone, half tempted to scroll through the messages from back home. I stopped myself. Those people didn't exist here anymore. I put the phone away and made a cup of cheap coffee, letting the warmth fill my chest. My arms still carried the memory of holding Emily, of telling her we'd be safe, and I meant every word. We were safe. Later that morning, I walked to a small cafe a few blocks away. I needed work, any work, to build this new life. The place was cozy, sun spilling through the big windows, the smell of fresh bread hanging in the air. I stepped up to the counter, trying to hide how badly my hands were shaking. "Hi," I said, voice catching. "Are you hiring?" The owner, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, looked me over. "Experience." "I can learn anything," I told her. She nodded slowly, a hint of understanding crossing her face. "You can start tomorrow," she said. Relief hit me like a wave. "Thank you," I breathed. "Everyone deserves a fresh start," she replied simply. That night, Emily came home glowing with stories about her classes, a teacher who praised her drawings, a new friend who wanted to trade lunch snacks. Her smile was wide and unstoppable, so bright it felt like it could light up the entire apartment. "I told you," I teased. "You're amazing." She stuck out her tongue playfully and went to do homework. I sat down with the bills. Yes, there were plenty, but they didn't scare me anymore. These were my burdens, honest ones, earned by freedom. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number, one after another. I let it ring. They couldn't touch us now. Even if they screamed, even if they twisted stories, even if they tried to rewrite history, they couldn't reach past these walls, past this truth we'd built for ourselves. We were free. That night, Emily fell asleep on the couch, homework still in her lap. I carried her gently to bed, pulled the thin blanket over her, and watched her breathing, steady and safe. I stood there a long while, a quiet prayer humming through my chest. Thank you for letting us go. Thank you for showing me I could be strong. Thank you for reminding me that love doesn't have to hurt. I stepped outside onto the small balcony, breathing in the night air, feeling its calm, open honesty. I closed my eyes, letting a new kind of peace settle into my bones. No more hiding. No more apologizing. No more lies. I had chosen us, and I would keep choosing us every single day until the world ran out of tomorrows.